Hi, patrons. Tim here to answer some of your questions for July 2023. So, to start us off, Bram asks, how do you go about scheduling the work on the next omnibus? Is it more like when you have time, or do you work more towards a soft deadline like every so many months/years? So, it's actually a little bit of both. The very first thing I need is enough comics for a book. That varies depending on the series. So, for instance, Starcaster Chronicles, I've set kind of 5 issues as the size of a book. So once I have 5 issues done, I can start working on a book for that. For the other volumes that I'm currently doing, Control Delete 2.0 and Analog and D-pad, uh, it's generally like in the 200 to 300 page range. Is I think a good size for a collection book like this. So then the next thing I'll do is I will set myself sort of a soft deadline. I'm working on a number of books right now. So a couple of years ago, I did all of these volume ones: Starcaster Chronicle Volume One, Control Delete 2.0 Volume One, and Analog and Deep. I then started work kind of roughly on putting together the volume twos for those series because I did have enough comics. So, like, my soft deadline for myself right now is that I would like to be launching that Kickstarter very early 2024. So, like January, February ish. So, with that soft deadline in mind, then it becomes sort of like when I have time. I make myself a list of everything that I need to do for all of the books, and that'll involve remastering the pages, which is cleaning up artwork, cleaning up dialogue, um, drawing extra content, sorting out covers, all of that stuff that I need to do. I make myself a checklist and I slowly chip away at it. When I can between all my other work. Sometimes I get to work on a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but I do try and keep a very in mind my soft deadline, and it's a soft deadline for a reason. I might not hit it, but I'm aiming for it regardless. .jpg wants to know, how the heck did you manage to build and maintain your brand and business while being a good father? To me, it seems that at the end of one's energy, there is still plenty of day left. So there's a couple elements to this. First of all, I did a lot of my building the brand before I had kids. I did Control Delete for a little over 10 years before oldest was born. So that was I had that going for me. Trying to do both necessarily at the same time. I had pretty fairly established comic by the time I then took on my second full-time position of being a father. From that point on, however, though, I'm very lucky that being self-employed and doing the work that I do is relatively flexible. Not, at least for me anyway, flexible in whether or not the work that gets done, but more flexible in like when it gets done. So I will still, I will work an 8 to 10, sometimes 12-hour day, but I get to generally choose how I break that up. So that was very beneficial to me when the kids were very young. I could take hours out at a time to parent, especially if my wife was working, and then I could work during their nap times or whatever. So it definitely made for some very long days, but I was able to fit it all in around the needs of the kids. And then that just evolves as the kids get older. Once they both started school, that definitely freed up from fall to spring, Monday through Friday while they're in school. I get to be super productive because I'm up early, getting them ready, getting them off to school, and then they're not here, so I can really really focus, and so that then helped me condense my work day back down into something a little bit more traditional, in terms of like the 8 to 4 or the 9 to 5. But even still within that, I am always home, so I'm always available to the kids. If they need something, I often step away, or they come in and ask questions and whatever. So I kind of get to do both in that regard. I get to, like, I'm working here, but I am also being a dad. And look, that's not to say that I'm not tired all the time. It is exhausting to work full time and be there for your kids, but that's what I signed up for in both respects. Being a self-employed comic artist and being a dad were both commitments I chose to make, and that I choose to try and do the absolute best that I can at. So I'm certainly not trying to suggest or make it sound like, oh, it's easy, there's no problem. I mean, it's a lot. As I think any parent will tell you, as from the sound of your question, it sounds like I mean, it's a lot for all of us. And, I just have to constantly find, little scheduling tricks, little ways to streamline this or that so that I can get everything done that I want to get done. Or at least, most of what I want to get done. And finally, this month, Just James asks, what's the hardest part of your job that looks easy to outsiders? And what's something that's easy but seems to impress most people? That's almost kind of like two sides of the same coin in a way. Because I'm not sure that there's a lot of stuff about my job that people misunderstand, or don't think about as being a thing. They don't quite uh, grasp what goes into it. So there's definitely some underestimating, and I don't think that's everybody either. Like there are definitely some people who do get that writing is hard and takes time, and the art is hard and takes time. So while I've had people that have definitely given me the impression that they think I work a couple hours to knock out a comic and then I just goof off for the rest of the day. Some people do understand that it's can be a many hours, 6, 8 hour process to put a comic together. So the reason I say it's like a flip side of the same coin is that, um, so people might think that the art side of it is easy, but at the same time, for at least the style I use for the comic, I'm so used to doing it that I can do it fairly efficiently. And some people are still super impressed that I put it out every day or every other day. So I would say that, I mean, if there is uh anything that I make look easy, then I will take that as a compliment, because there's not a lot of it that is easy. It's definitely, there's a lot of and some days are definitely easier than others too. There are 100% days where either the writing or the art just kind of like spills forth, and it's, I can barely keep up with it. It's like super, it's just, it feels easier. And then there are other days that it's like pulling teeth, and you just, you really have to work at it to get something out. And I think that that's just part of the creative process. And I think that no matter what kind of creative or maker you are, you're going to deal with that kind of thing, whether you're writing music, whether or not you're building things. It's just kind of going to be that ebb and flow of creativity and ease, and good days and bad days and all that kind of stuff. So I would say mostly, if something like what I do looks easy to anybody, it's typically because they themselves don't engage in the creation of art or anything like that, or they just generally don't understand what happens before the finished product. And that's, in large part because you don't get to see what happens before the finished product. All of the me sitting in my office back and forth between scripts, wording, trying to like try this, try this. No, that's here's an idea, but how do I lead up to that idea? All that like back and forth and sort of like trying to pound this block of clay into shape, you don't typically get to see. So it's not entirely unexpected to find that people don't think about that part. They just see the comic go up, and for me, very consistently. It's something I'm very proud of, that I don't miss update days, and so they see Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever, the page just shows up. And so it could be very easy, I think, to assume that it's easy just because I do it with regularity. But I assure you, it's not. And then again, for the second part of the question, what's something that's easy but seems to impress most people? I'm gonna substitute easy, because as I've established, I wouldn't call any of this easy. But definitely for me, creating comics, it's what I do. It's my normal, and yet it does seem to impress some people. Whereas, like, to change perspective on that, for instance, like, I think someone who writes a song, I find that incredibly impressive. But somebody who writes songs, even though they're gonna say like, yeah, no, it's not easy, but it's also a thing that they do, so it is perhaps easier to them or more mundane to them than something else might be. So really, I think that that's just all down to a matter of perspective, and we're all good at different things. We all focus on different things, and so the things that we do can seem like, okay, well, yeah, like I know how to do that. That's not super impressive, but something else could be super impressive, except to the person that does it, if that makes sense. Alrighty, and that wraps up Q&A for this month. We will see you guys again in August. Thank you so much, and I hope you're having a great summer.